It's great to have you. Thank you for being with us. And well, we know each other, I think, for over 20 years now in the business. And well, I got to know you when I entered the scene. So you have been in the business probably for a couple of years when I was a junior, still starting my little career. And I was always very impressed. And as Julia said, you have talked to so many different people all around the world and always asking a question, why are you creative? And now today we want to focus a little bit on European creativity. And so I wonder, as you were asking so many artists and talents and inspirators all across the globe, what is most common for your European counterparts to answer? So what bonds them together?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the invite. And in my journeys, in my creative journeys, I met indeed numerous European creatives, artists, and thinkers. And during the talks, one thing that they all had in common, one creative stimulus they all had in common is heritage and parents. For instance, when I talked to Pedro Almodóvar, the great Spanish filmmaker, he said that most of his dialogues he gets in conversation with his mother, direct lines from his mother. That was a great creative influence for him, and no wonder that he opened the last film festival in Venice with a film called Parallel Mothers, starring Penelope Cruz. Then Isabella Rossellini, who was born in Rome, and her parents, Roberto Rossellini and Ingrid Bergman, very famous creative parents, she just told me she wanted to stay in the same métier as her parents. So that is the importance of heritage. There's another thing in amongst European creatives is ambition. Very ambitious, think the unthinkable, do the impossible. And Marina Abramovic, the great Serbian performance artist, she once told me, you have to give 100%. And then she said, you have to give more than 100% just to be good enough. And when I get stuck, that's always something I remember, And a thinker, a scientist, Stephen Hawking, I met him in Edinburgh, and he said to me through his computer voice that you need to be creative to do good science, otherwise you're only repeating tired old formulas, you aren't doing anything new. And new is what we want in creativity. And last but by no means least is rebellion. Rebellion, there's a lot of rebellion in Europe, thanks God. When I met Sex Pistols John Lydon, he said anger is an energy. That same energy was transferred to Pussy Riot in Russia. When I met Marsha, she told me we rebel against hypocrisy, fighting against hypocrisy. Or the godmother of punk, Vivienne Westwood, she referred to the to the idealistic youth that is always fighting against the corruption of the world, and that is what punk is. And all of these great creative stimuli we can find in Europe.
I think this is what you say. I think it's absolutely right. So you say it's the diversity in Europe that makes Europe special. So I think when I'm talking about Europe, I always say, well, this is not one country. So it's a lot of countries. So we shouldn't say Europe is Europe, but it's a lot of different countries, cultures, and backgrounds coming together, which makes Europe special. And I also agree to what Hawkins said. Or that you are referring back to Hawkins, that it's not only in the creative field and in the creative business where creativity is very important. So especially in sciences and something like that, we have to refer back to creativity. So the diversity of Europe is the special thing about Europe, no?
Yeah, definitely.
And well, the question is, and probably this is the same answer, but the question is is other countries or people who are not coming from Europe, what is it that makes them envy Europe for? So what should we celebrate in Europe? So what makes them envy?
Yeah, you said it. It's our diversity. It's European diversity, and it's our heritage. You know, we are the sons, and we are the daughters of William Shakespeare and Elfriede Jelinek, of Marie Curie, and of Galileo Galilei, Beethoven, and Sid Vicious, to mention another one, and also of Michelangelo and Samuel Beckett, you know. But mentioning Beckett, we're thinking if Beckett would live in North Korea today, we would still be waiting for Godot. And that is referring to totalitarian states, how they found successfully create means to control and to imprisonment and restrictions people's creativity. And thankfully, luckily, we have great creative people beyond the Iron Curtain that stood up and against it, that were fighting, you know, that repression. And I talked to the president of the European Film Academy, you know, Agnieszka Holland. And Agnieszka was saying that she was, you know, suffered herself and experienced censorship, and told me about people who are standing up today, like Oleg Sentsov and Kyryl Serebrennikov, facing immense restrictions. But she also said in Europe the spirit is stronger than the bars, you know. Or if we look at the, you know, the dangers of climate change, you know, the Anthropocene and all what's threatening us, we have in Europe very courageous and admirable people like Luisa Neubauer and Greta Thunberg, who do a lot of things against it, you know. And that's so important. And mentioning now the climate conference in Lausanne where I went, you know, I saw that these young generation has definitely understood something that the adults never understood, you know. And that creativity is not just a matter of artistic interest, but a question of our very survival. And of course, you can say and criticize and have complaints about the European Union, you know, they mishandled this and that. But there's one thing, you know, I like to say, which everybody should end by it, the USP of the EU, the USP. What is the USP of the EU? The headline, isn't it?
That would be a nice.
What's the USP of the EU? And I think it's a peace concept. Right. You know, it's a peace concept that after the 20th century, 21st century of a lot of disasters and inferno, you know, we have a period of peace. Long period of peace, successfully practiced. And when Werner Herzog received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the European Film Academy, he said that the EU is the greatest peace project in the world ever. And he's totally right. And, you know, we shouldn't forget that.
I think it's a lot about the balance, you know, it's like from A to Z. So if we have people fighting against something, others celebrating things, so again, it all comes back to the diversity that is so important, especially today, especially in Europe today as well. So is there anything that from your experience could Europe make stronger, even stronger, as we both think Europe is already, but how can we well make this even more solid in these uncertain times?
Yeah, one thing is when we Europeans are learning to control, to use fear as a vehicle, you know. Yeah. Once when I met David Bowie, he said to me that he's creative because he wants to conquer his anxieties and fear. And that's a good aim, to conquer our anxieties and fear, because we're all creative, we all have ideas, but what's the difference between the creative and the so-called non-creative people is that the so-called non-creative people, they think about it, talk about it, but are not doing it, whereas the creative people are doing it. And there's the often told story by Damien Hirst, you know, was once asked by a journalist from the BBC, pointing at one of his artworks, he said, I could have done that. And Damien said, yes, but you didn't. And why are we not doing it?
I think that's the best answer to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's an often told story, but you can't tell it often enough, you know, because it's a key point. Because the main enemy of creativity is fear, you know. And but on the other side, there's hope. And Luisa Neubauer from Fridays for Future told me, answered the question why she's creative. She wrote, because there is still hope, you know. And this hope has one condition. And this condition is that the key to the survival of Europe and to our survival is creativity. And only creativity can help and save Europe, can help and save us. Therefore, it needs help, it needs support. And we just heard from the EU that there is help and support, and there should be even more, you know, because it really works. You know, look at the film business, for instance, with European co-productions and solidarity, so that also small countries like Denmark or Romania all of a sudden doing great films. You know, sure. Romania is winning the Palme d'Or in Cannes, Cristian Mungiu. There's Adina Pintilli and Radu Jude who won the Berlinale. And that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to the European Film Academy next week and to the European Art Directors Club this week. So it's all fantastic.
No, so it's a lot about co-creation to even strengthen our strengths that we have in Europe. We're talking a lot about co-creation. I absolutely agree. Couldn't agree more that as we are facing a lot of challenges, not only in Europe, but also in Europe, creativity is always the best answer, because we are facing new challenges, so we have to find new answers, and new answers is kind of pushing ideas, is pushing innovation, is pushing creativity. So creativity is the answer, so I'd say. And I still like the headline, what is the USP of the EU? Maybe it is that we are open to co-create. We have a lot of backgrounds, cultures coming together, so we can co-create. We have to push that, and we have to put creativity on our foreheads. But Hermann, a personal question. Now, following you almost, well, during my whole creative life, you have talked to so many people, and you got so many inspirations into your head. So, what are you doing next? So, what is coming next for Hermann Vaske after such a full life of creativity?
It goes on. It continues more active than ever, you know, because you know, if you know, you only have one life, and you know, you have to do something that is worth doing, because otherwise, what's the point, you know? And after Why Are We Not Creative and Why Are We Creative, I'm finishing the creative trilogy with How Are We Creative? And this How Are We Creative is that after all these upheavals we experienced, you know, we need a new creative beginning. That's what it's all about, the burning questions of our time, you know. How could we fire up a new creative renaissance? How can creativity help solve the problems of the world? And how can each and every one of us, you know, be encouraged not only to have ideas, but also to implement those ideas? And at the end of the day, we need to put creativity on top of the pyramid. So that's How Are We Creative. And that goes on festivals next year, and in conjunction with two new books. One is Dialectic of Creativity at Hatje Kant's publishers, and the other one is indeed Why Are We Creative, of the collections of all the writings and drawings, a postcard book, and by Zeltman Publishers. And you know, there will be a couple of exhibitions in Cannes, in Munich, and Potsdam, and at the Frankfurt Book Fair. To forget the Frankfurt Book Fair. And,
that sounds amazing, and honestly,
yeah.
It was a kind of a rhetorical question, because I already had the honor to have a little bit of a sneak preview in the projects that you're doing, and that really sounds all really amazing. I'm looking very much forward to that. And well, coming We're coming to the end, or not the end, or maybe it's a start. It's more a start that we are focusing on European creativity, and you kicked off together with the ADCE of Europe. We kicked off a little series about your talks to European creatives, and we have the first episode of that. With a very special creative and probably a very well-known creative all around Europe, which is Oliviero Toscani. And well, this is the kickoff for a little series of social media posts that we are doing to focus and to well, reveal what it is about the European creativity. No?
A good creative and a dear friend, yeah. Oliviero Toscani. Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's a good idea to put the spotlight on Europe.
Yeah, well, thanks for doing that, Hermann, and thanks for being here. Before we will play that little video, I want to thank you again for coming, for doing that, for kicking off the series, and for helping creativity to enhance in Europe and to push our European strengths.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you, Hermann.
Thank you.
And now let's roll the Oliviero Toscani film, please.
Hello, I'm Hermann Vaske. In a personal quest, I had conversations with some of the most intriguing artists and thinkers for more than 30 years. It's an exploration into the various facets of creativity. And now it's about time we put the spotlight on European creativity.
I was born February 1942. 1942 in Milan, the town was under siege, you know, bombing. I was like 7 months old, let's say, at the end of 1942. I was born in February 2nd. Just think if I would have stood up in my creche at 7 months, you know, with all the diapers, and say, hey, in 17 years, we will be unified in Europe, we will have Euro, we will be a film festival in Berlin and one in Venice, and one in Cannes. We will travel around without passport. People would have said to my mother, hey, take this idiot. Your son is an idiot. What is he talking about? I mean, it was the most creative, absurd thing to think of. Absurd. Probably creativity is a vision in absurdity. You know, personally, I think that anytime you do something creative, you that are doing something creative, you should be the first one to be embarrassed of what you do. Embarrassed. Oh, mamma mia. It should even overcome your morality.
Think the unthinkable.
That's it. The impossible. So you should be the first one to think, I'm a jerk. Well, anyhow. That's the way you should dream. Almost like an idiot. That people can tell you he's an idiot. Idiot did a lot of important things.